Hello and welcome to Trial by Fire. I'm your host and spiritual guinea pig, Niall, and I welcome you on board this crazy roller coaster that is life, although we both know you're already on it. Liminal safe space for introspection and diary of spiritual journeying, this podcast explores the mystical, the magical, the obscure, and the downright weird through putting in the time and the work, and through practice. And oh yeah, thanks for listening. Hello and welcome to Trial by Fire. If this is your first time here, thanks for joining me. If you've already listened to the introduction, I'm glad that you are here. I have my incense a-burning. I got my little mug of tea. If you are also at home, get your little tea, get your little incense. Please do the same. I mean, let's create a spiritual atmosphere. Get you open. Anyway, so I wanted to start off talking about what I'm doing. I mean, of course, if you listen to the introduction, then you already have a little idea about this. I was explaining today already, because when people ask me what I do, then this is one of my hats that I'm wearing, or at least seeing what it feels like on. So far, it feels pretty good. We can feel all sorts of ways, and especially here, the weather has not been particularly good of late. It's been, I don't know, pretty cold. It's felt a bit like we went back to winter, or the end of winter transition to spring. And finally, it's the first day where the night actually feels warm again. So I'm feeling the energy. Other than that, I don't know. I've been focusing on writing down my dreams. I don't know. So, but before I mentioned, in the last episode, I mentioned that I was doing this PhD application, which really took it out of me. And now finally, I feel like I've recovered the energy. You know, how I described it to people was that I was borrowing the motivation from the future. And then I had to pay it back, which kind of put me in a bit of a recovery mode for a while. Anyway, now I feel like I'm fully recovered. So I'm like back in action.
All right.
And I've been recording my dreams as of late in great detail. Something that I do just in order to understand a bit more about my subconscious and the kind of messages that it's trying to give me or what it's trying to tell me, but also kind of to see how much is the stuff that I'm studying or dealing with or kind of entertaining seeping into my subconscious as well. Anyway, long story short, I had this interesting dream where there was this African uncle who was chasing me, not really chase, that's a bit dramatic, but he was following me down a street. He was kind of somewhere in between heckling me and trying to flirt with me. I had these moments of looking back at him and shouting at him, well, if you want it, you have to pay for it. Which just doesn't seem much like things that happen in my everyday life. But I managed to track it back to experiences that I had when I was really young, with somebody that had a really profound impact on my sense of identity and my understanding of my sexuality. And it was a particularly complicated time when I was trying to figure all of this kind of stuff out. So I reached out to this person and we ended up having a conversation about it.
Wow.
The first time I think that I really action something that I've learned from my dream or something that comes from my subconscious into my conscious awareness. And I actually act on it, and I reach out to somebody and I'm like, hey, did you know that you had this impact on me? Anyway, he was probably thinking, who is this wacko and why are they talking to me now? But it's nice to, I guess, if somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, do you know you had a really profound impact on my life when I was an adolescent? Maybe it would be quite interesting. I mean, I'm waiting for the moment that happens to me, but maybe it never does. Hey. Okay, going back to what the fuck I'm actually doing here. Trial by Fire is an attempt to evaluate or research spiritual, mystical, magical, etc. practices by actually doing them. The intention of the podcast is to share, my insights or what I'm learning and to also receive, for my listeners to basically follow along with me at the same time so that we can kind of help each other, but also share our journeys towards healing, towards fullness, towards wholeness, etc. I have this incense burning, as I mentioned before. I've got my little tea. So I did a little bit of research. I bought this collection of different incenses. Some of them are nice and some of them really smell like something you don't want your toilet to smell like. Violet is one of the ones that smells actually quite pleasant. And violet is something that I personally connect to spirituality, especially to, I don't know, spiritual gifts or psychic abilities. I have this book that references, well, it's called, I have it here, it's called Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. It speaks about the different associations of various herbs in folklore, in magical tradition, in spirituality, etc. Violet is supposedly associated with the planet Venus. It can be mixed with lavender to arouse lust or love, so it can be used in love potions or lust potions. It can be carried and then offers protection against evil spirits. And it is also used to calm tempers and induce sleep. I mean, this kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of water, but even with the color, it's kind of like soft and, it's not so soft. I mean, violets can be really audacious or something. Okay, so it's a soothing expectorant, and if you don't know what an expectorant is, assists in the expulsion of secretions, especially from the respiratory tract. For me, also, violet has a connection with the crown chakra, and the colors associated with the crown chakra in general are violet or white. Now, if we just think about color theory, well, violet, purple is a mixture between red and blue. Red could be seen as representing fire, so that's heat, action, passion, and blue, on the other hand, representing water, which refers more to calm and, or cold. I mean, there's something soothing about blue. So there's some kind of a mixture between these two polarities, leading to a sense of union. The other color that's associated with the crown chakra is white, which is actually a combination of all of the different kind of chakras, and it's the highest chakra, and it has the closest relationship with spirituality, is associated with things like enlightenment and the awakening of consciousness. I also made this tea, and I didn't really think much about the elements that I used in there. There was just a vague thought given to it. Linden has there's so many pages dedicated to Linden. I mean, Linden is also known as lime flower. And funnily enough, this is the kind of time of year that Linden is in bloom. So a lot of Brussels smells so sweet. And my partner and I have been collecting linden flower. I mean, like crazy people, have been going to these linden trees at all sorts of hours, collecting the flowers. And now we're kind of drying them out. So it was kind of convenient for me. I mean, I was thinking I would like something to loosen my jaw a bit. And then I've got these linden flowers drying, so I thought it was perfect. Linden is associated with Jupiter, and it's also associated very heavily with protection, but it has so many different uses. The leaves and flowers of linden can be used in love spells, and linden, much like violet, can be combined with lavender. But instead of being related to love spells or lust spells, it's more related to inducing sleep. It's a sedative, it's supposed to relieve tensions and sinus headaches, and has an overall calming effect. So, if you want to join me on this journey, this is so long, I'm sorry. But I'm a botanical bitch, what can I say?
All right.
I have so many practices, like spiritual practices on the go, and, oftentimes I pick things up and then I drop things, or, my spiritual practice is a bit all over the place. Part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast, in order to kind of add some structure to this chaotic mess. But one of the practices that I've been engaging in relates to this idea of the key of soul, which is a practice that is suggested in the podcast Astral Doorway. Great podcast, by the way, if you're interested in like astral projection or lucid dreaming. Key of soul in its essence is soul, SOL, stands for subject, object, and location. So this practice is essentially a practice of trying to maintain presence of mind at all times. How it works is that you use this formula throughout the day. I mean, it really does take some practice because presence of mind is not easy, and I'm certainly not there by any means. So S stands for subject, which means me. What am I doing? Like, what am I actually doing in this moment? where is my body? How is my body oriented? Is there something in my hand? What does it feel like? O stands for object. So what is the object of my attention? What am I focused on in this moment? I mean, for instance, right now I'm speaking into this microphone, but my attention is on this vintage map of London that is in front of me. And it has this weird figure that kind of looks like a human body, but is also face. Anyway, distracted. Woo!
All right.
Finally, L stands for location. So that's about where am I? How did I get here? So it's kind of retracing your steps. Like, where was I just before? And then where was I before that? Part of this process is looking around and kind of getting used to thinking, is everything in its place? Like, is everything normal? Does everything seem, well, really it's about understanding, is this a dream? Anyway, this practice, this practice is, we're not starting there. So if this scares you, please do not worry about it. It's just something that I've been practicing. My original idea for this podcast was to follow a book, and the book that I had chosen is called How to See Fairies. I would follow this book week by week. I mean, it's see fairies in 6 weeks, essentially. So it's like 6 weeks of different exercises to encourage you to practice like observation and to understand how fairies can basically manifest for you. Don't expect necessarily to see Tinkerbell flying around, but fairies could manifest in other ways. Maybe I'll come back to that and kind of draw inspiration from it, because the exercises in that are really, fascinating, powerful things. But in a lot of these step-by-step books, they start off with really simple activities that just start to ease you into paying more attention to what is around you, particularly to your senses or to what you see and how you feel and all of these kind of things. A friend of mine and I often talk about meditation and some other similar practices. And she's really big on hypnosis. So part of her time she spends doing auto-hypnosis, which I'm not 100% how it works. In any case, something that she told me is that at one point she was sitting down doing this auto-hypnosis. And what she started to realize is that she was directing the flow, as in, something manifests. And she's like, no, not that. I need to see it like this, or I need the image that I'm getting from this practice to actually appear in this certain way. She told me that it's a much better practice to kind of allow your mind to lead you and to direct you, instead of trying to be the boss of it and also actively reprimanding it for taking you in a different direction. Honestly, this thought of just allowing your mind to guide you, especially when it comes to these kind of practices, was mind-blowing. I mean, I started to think about all of the areas in my life where I'm trying to direct the flow of information that I receive, or direct the narrative. I realized from what she was saying that oftentimes we are dissatisfied with whatever it is that we're seeing. Like, it's not good enough for us, or we feel like we need to see things in a way that corresponds more with how we imagine them. Going back to this example of how to see fairies, we might think about that as, okay, I want to see Tinkerbell. In actual fact, fairies may not manifest to you as Tinkerbell. That's just like one image of them, but they may be manifesting to you all the time. Because you're focused on seeing Tinkerbell, you are not necessarily seeing the fairies that could be calling you all of the time. The first exercise is learning how to allow your mind, your imagination, and your creative faculties to just guide you instead of trying to direct them. How do you do that? What I recommend, or what I'm going to be practicing over the next couple of weeks, is just sitting down, closing my eyes. You can be sat on a seat, you can be sat on the floor, you can be comfortable. That's the most important thing. You can start by focusing on your breathing, or you can start in any way you want. But the intention is to allow whatever information is being transmitted or communicated to you to come to you without trying to direct it. Like many of the other practices that I'm intending to introduce into this show, I'm going to be practicing this like my life depends on it. So my intention is probably to do it around 3 times a day, around 15 minutes or so. Will I get there? Who knows? We're going to find out.
All right.
As I'm going to say every week, please share with me your experiences. Like, drop me a message. Tell me what you realize. Tell me what comes to you. And of course, I'm going to be sharing my own insights when I come back with the next episode. I'd like to end by a little segment that I am going to call Tarot She Better Don't. Thank you, RuPaul, for the inspiration. In this segment, I'm going to draw a tarot card, which is going to represent, I don't know where I am in this moment, but also just, what the card means and a little bit about its significance. Yeah, it can be like past, present, future, whatever, all of the above. The tarot deck that I'm using is called the Tarot of Thoth, or the Thoth Tarot. Thoth being the Egyptian god of knowledge. And this was a creation by Aleister Crowley, a famous English magician, and Frida Harris, who is an artist who basically, helped to construct and work the deck. So let's draw. Okay, I just had a card fall out. I have in front of me the Hierophant. Well, the name the Hierophant can also be known as the Pope. It is represented by the number 5. 5s being a number of, a bit like the crown chakra, it's a bit of a unification of all of the elements, plus the addition of an extra element, earth, water, air, fire, and ether, which is, like spirit or kind of like everything, the void, space, etc. On this card, there is a figure, it seems kind of in Mesopotamian style. He is holding a staff with 3 circles, interlaced circles, and there is a 5-pointed star in the center with a child. There are so many other elements on this card, honestly. There is like a lot going on. There are 4 masks around this figure. Well, there's one that is an eagle, one is a human, one is a bull, and one is a lion. So these are actually the 4 evangelists. Or they can be seen as the fixed signs of the zodiac. The eagle representing Scorpio, the man representing an angel, Aquarius, the bull representing fixed earth sign, Taurus, and the lion representing Leo. In general, there's a lot of it feels like he feels very present. He feels very powerful. He's holding his staff up and he's also holding 2 fingers down, which is representing for me as above, so below. He feels very powerful. He feels very in control. He feels kind of like enlightened in general. But the colors used on this card, it's like kind of this washed out reds and burgundies, which makes me feel a bit like there's something that is being missed, or that there's something that, like, there's more to it. I think there's a sense of like complacency in a way by his position somehow. This card in general is all about the establishment. It's about connection to spirituality, and which is very appropriate for the first episode of this podcast. It's about dogma, tradition. And on the flip side, it would be about relinquishing control, being more free instead of following rules. The other interesting thing about 5s, or the number 5, is that it's kind of a number that, when you look at the minor arcana in tarot, the 5s are never really, they're always a bit like something is coming at you that's knocking you off balance or throwing you off course somehow. So there's something about separation or somehow disruption. You have the 4 elements and then you have this other one that people don't really know much about. So there's something about this other element that's added into the mix that kind of disrupts or changes the way that we actually look at the balance of the elements involved. This card also is a representation of Taurus. Taurus, in general, can reflect strength, stubborn. It's a bull. It can reflect strength and stubbornness. Also like hard work, endurance. And I feel a bit like it's a really appropriate card for, I guess, the first episode of my podcast, just in a sense that here we are starting to explore the rules, the framework of the self, of of the mind, of consciousness, taking spirituality seriously, not necessarily playing by the rules, but exploring the rules and investigating them. So in general, I feel kind of excited about receiving this card. I feel like it's a good sign that we have started exploring the in-between. Finally, I'm thinking about creating another episode where I kind of explore the exercise in more detail, or maybe more so I'm just going to give a bit of an explanation or like a walkthrough of the exercise itself. We'll see if I decide to do that. I mean, probably this part is not even going to be published. I don't even know why I'm recording it or why I think it's important to tell you, but I guess for my own reflection, ... Yeah. So if you have made it this far, thank you so much for your patience, and thank you so much for persisting in something that may be chaotic or a bit all over the place. I promise you I will improve over time. And I hope to see you in the next episode with all of your reflections in the exercise that we have mentioned. You can find me on Patreon at Trial by Firecast. So patreon.com/trialbyfirecast. And you can find me also on Instagram. That's Trial by Firecast. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Bye bye.